Hey everybody, it's Greg. Let's just wait a minute or two, maybe 30 seconds, just to make sure that everybody gets in who wants to jump in. And again, I want to thank Mike for putting this together. I was part of the event last year. It conflicted. I was traveling, and so I pulled over into a gas station and gave my presentation on the phone. But it's just so great to see how it has grown, and to see, over 300 men and women who are concerned about our mental health, who want to learn more how to share, how to take care of each other, because we can do better with it. So I've only got 15 minutes. I want to keep the schedule. So here we go. Today, I wanted to talk about three different things, all about how do we talk about mental health. And it wasn't until recently that I learned how to talk about mental health, how to talk about suicide, how to reach out, and how to help myself and help others. So tonight, I want to talk about how to reach out to other people, how to share with each other, and how to follow up, because it's in the follow up, it's building the relationships and building the trust with each other that we can continue to have these conversations and share our stories and share what we know and help those people, not only to listen to them, but suggest, talk to your doctor, talk to a counselor, reach out, because we can all do better and be better. So here are the numbers, and the numbers really don't lie. 1 in 5 adults in 2023 are going to be dealing with mental health issues. Now that is from mild anxiety all the way up to clinical depression, to ADHD, like Alexander was talking about as well. 8 out of 10 employees still do not feel comfortable going to their managers or HR at work to talk about the struggles that they have with mental health because of the shame and the guilt. And what Love Letter to Men and all these different groups in this event is doing to help bring down and normalize those feelings so that we can talk about it and share with each other. Suicide is the 12th leading cause in North America, which is staggering. It's a huge number, and it's a number that we can and must reduce. And in 2022, there were 1.2 million suicide attempts in North America. So big numbers that we have to work together, but together we're better. And the more we talk about mental health, the more we reach out and the more we help each other, the better we all can be. So like I said, I learned how to talk about mental health 2.5 years ago. This picture was taken 48 hours before we found out that my stepdaughter, Rachel, who's on the very right, that her dad had taken his own life. We were I surprised Rachel with going to a stand-up comedy show with Brian Regan because her family loves to laugh. And she can memorize and has memorized every punchline of Brian Regan, which I find very funny, because when she was 13, she couldn't remember to feed the dog that she walked by every morning on the way to school, but she could remember Brian Regan's punchlines. And so I surprised her, and with my connections through stand-up comedy, I got a meet and greet with Brian. And so we got to the stadium early, and we were down in the bowels of the hockey stadium where I worked. And I said, "Hey, Rachel, there's my office. Just knock on the door." So she knocked on the door. Brian opened the door up and said, "Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for coming to my show." And I have never heard her not say something. She was blown away, and Brian was happy. We were all happy. And here we were in the green room for 5-10 minutes, and we were just talking about comedy and life and whatnot. And then Brian did a great thing for me, because a really good friend of mine opens for Brian. He upgraded our seats from the ones that I had purchased to front row, center stage. So here's our family. 48 hours we found out this news. Well, Monday morning, a year into my marriage, Becky woke me up at 2:00 in the morning and said, "We need to talk." And my first immediate thought was, what did I do wrong? And she said, Grant passed away. And it was unbelievable. It was shocking. I didn't know what to say. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What happened? Was it a car accident? What's going on? I just woken up. And she said, no, he took his own life. and it was hell. Neither of us knew what to do. She had been married to Grant for many years, and she started crying, and I started crying, and we're sitting in our bed, not sure what to do. So we got up and went in the living room. We decided to let Rachel continue to sleep because we didn't know what the hell to do. So we got onto Google and we started researching how do you talk about suicide? How do you share with a child that her parent is now gone? And so we did that for about 4 hours and continued to talk and just try and do whatever we could to keep it together for Rachel. And she came down in the morning. We let her know, and she was in shock. At first, she's like, "Oh, that can't be real." So she decided to go to school. We thought maybe stay home, but she decided to go and plow on. And after school, she had told some of her friends, and this is where I learned how to talk to people about mental health and about suicide. That afternoon, two of her friends, their parents, and their kids showed up at our front door. One of them brought flowers and a card, and the other person brought ice cream and cookies. And they both said the exact same thing. They said, we heard what happened. We're so very sorry. We don't know what to say. And we stood with them and just hugged them and shared tears. And it was just that feeling that people cared about us, even though they didn't know what to say. And sometimes when you hear about someone passing by suicide, take the time, reach out. You might feel a little bit weird or uncomfortable, but all you have to do is like, I'm here. I care about you. I don't know what to say, but I'm here for whatever you need. So again, reach out. How do we reach out? Number one, me first. And what I mean by that is we need to be in the right frame of mind when we talk to another person about mental health or we hear about a suicide. If we're not in the right frame of mind, if we're off kilter or whatnot. So we need to make sure that we are there to listen, we are there to be kind, and that we are there to be positive when we do talk to people. And myself, to keep myself in that positive frame of mind, I meditate, and Mike does a great job every morning. We meditate at 6:30 Mountain Time or 7:30, 6:30 Pacific. So I meditate and I do breathing exercises just to make sure my mindset is right about my day. Number two, warning signs. How do you tell if someone is struggling with mental health? I hear it all the time. People say, "Well, that was the last person I would think that would be struggling with mental health, but that's the last person that I thought would take their life." Some of the warning signs, and I share this with people all the time. Say if you're on a hockey team, right? There's a lot of Canadians on here. You're on a hockey team, and George is there every week, every fourth week. He brings beer. He's a part of the conversation, the chit chat. You can count on George to be at the hockey games. Well, one Tuesday night, you show up at the game and you don't see George, or you don't hear from him. You don't hear a text, and that might go on for a week or two. And typically, when people get in distress and they start to have anxiety or depression or ADHD takes over, their habits change. And so, if a habit changes in one of your friends and you notice it, just reach out to them, send a text, drop, an email, or best, give them a call, and just, hey, how are you doing? We miss you at hockey, right? And typically, guys, especially, will say, I'm all right, just missed the game. Follow that question up with another question very similar, and just say, no, really, how are you doing? We miss you. I have 10 minutes to talk. What's going on? And that'll drop the walls. That'll allow them to know that you're empathetic, that you're caring, and that will allow them to trust you. So they have feelings better that they can have a conversation with you. And then thirdly, when you reach out to your friends, whether it's a buddy or your spouse or your kid, lead with empathy, right? Nobody wants to hear, well, this is what I did and how things are going and blah, blah, blah. When people are in crisis, they want people who will listen, who care about them, give them a pat on the back, show up with flowers, give them a hug, but lead with empathy when reaching out to others. How do we share? When I started doing research, and now I speak to organizations and leaders on how to talk about mental health, how to normalize those conversations. I like to start with my experience, right? Once you have a conversation and they say, you know what, I'm just struggling with work. There's a lot of stress. Just be empathetic and share a little bit about your experiences in life. Or if you've struggled with anxiety or depression or ADHD, share a little bit about yourself. So when I talk to somebody, I'm like, you know what? I hear you. How are you doing? And they're like, I'm fine. No, really, how are you doing? I've got time. And if they say, you know what, I'm struggling at work, I feel overwhelmed, I'm feeling burnt out, I don't know what's going on. I like to share my experience, and I'll either talk about Rachel losing her dad and our whole family going through that situation, or I will just share briefly about during COVID how I felt overwhelmed, working out of an office. I'm very extroverted, and at times, and I just share a little bit about what I do, and going, I understand what you're going through. I feel you, and continue the conversation. Number two, make sure you're in the right environment, right? You don't want to have this conversation on the bench at a hockey game. You don't want to have it in a crowded bar where you can't hear. When you reach out to the person, either text or a phone call, say, hey, let's get together. Let's go for a coffee. Let's go for a walk, or even a drive, whatever it is, right? Whatever the two of you feel comfortable. But make sure that it's alone, because it is a tough subject to talk about. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of guilt and shame. So allow the environment to foster the communication. One-on-one typically works best when you're together, but just make sure other people are around and you both feel safe and comfortable. And then number three, again, listen more than talk. Sometimes the person who's going through stuff really doesn't want or doesn't know how to start the conversation. And so again, if you just talk them a little bit, tell them your story, empathize, show love, show trust, show caring, and then just listen. And people typically will open up, and they'll go on, and you can just empathize and say, I understand, I've been there before. What else, how can I help? All those kinds of things. And typically, it'll build trust, and it might not be that conversation, but maybe another conversation will lead to, have you ever talked to your doctor about what's going on? Or have you thought about seeing a counselor? Because we're all have gone through a lot through COVID, and there's so much more that we can do to help. Quickly follow up, because I'm running out of time here. But these people, put them in your calendar. I was speaking at a conference in Winnipeg. After the talk, a gentleman came up to me and said, hey, I really appreciate what you did. I asked him what his biggest takeaway was, and he said, the fact that I have no idea who you are, but I feel comfortable talking to you. And we spent 20 minutes talking about his extreme anxiety that he had had for 25 years, and only his wife and his doctor knew about it. And so every month I text or call Jason just to check in on him. I will text random text out to people on my calendar list who I've had conversations with, and just say, I appreciate you, keep going, you matter. And then finally, a support group, which we have here in our town. And I know in the chat section, a lot of people were leaving messages about their own groups, but ours is called Men in the Middle. And it's a group of guys like-minded where we come together, we serve our community shoulder to shoulder, build that trust. And if something goes sideways in our marriage or our job, finances, kids, we have people that we can lean on. And there's a QR code. So if you want to join our group online, we also have symposiums where guys come in and share their stories and whatnot, and go from there. Wow, this 15 minutes has gone fast, Mike. And I will finish up with this. Robin Williams was a hero of mine. I got to meet him, and he told me after a comedy show, after he watched me do stand-up, he said, Greg, keep making people laugh, because you'll never know the difference that you will make in their lives. And one of my favorite quotes, I have it on my wall. My daughter gave me a picture of Robin Williams, and in the picture are these words: everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always. So thank you, Mike, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You guys matter. I appreciate all of you. Here's my contact information. If I can help, or if you're looking for someone to talk to your organization, please reach out to me. My email, my phone number. or on LinkedIn. But thank you all very, very much. And thank you, Mike. Appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Greg. I am so grateful for the work that you do in the community as well. And I'm glad to have you back here next year. And I know these 15 minutes, they fly by, don't they? There's so much to say and so little time. Friends, so next session is Wesley and Salvi. They are going to be sharing their lived experiences, suicide attempt survivors. Then we have Fran Valenzuela talking about the fly in, fly out life and the mental health strains that brings with it. And then, of course, we have the inimitable Clint Malarchuk going to be sharing his story. And Clint is a friend of mine as well as Greg's. And I think you guys are really, really, really going to enjoy Clint. So we're headed back to the lobby now, and we'll pop in with Wesley and Salvi right away. Thanks again, Greg. I really appreciate you being here. And friends, you can always connect with the speakers through the event. If you go to that little people tab, you should be able to start a chat. I know Greg likes to chat. He would be happy to have a conversation with you if you've got questions for him. And it really is just about starting that conversation and getting some practice starting that conversation. Greg at gregkettner.com. All right, friends, I will see you back over in the lobby.